Madam Clerk?
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. I will call this Regional Transportation Commission meeting to order. It is 2:02, and we will start with a Pledge of Allegiance. If Mayor Lawson could please lead us.
I'm going to sit down so you can see me, but
Perfect.
join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which is
stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We'll now move into our roll call.
Okay. Ed Lawson,
here.
Bill Thomas,
Here.
Mari Luz Garcia,
Here.
Devin Reese,
Here.
Alexis Hill,
Here.
Tracy Larkin Thomason.
Here.
Thank you. We have Adam Spear.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We'll now move into public comment. Do we have any public comment, Madam Clerk?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move into item 3. Item 3 is a public hearing on the fiscal year 26 RTC final budget to approve a recommendation from the executive director regarding an employee cost of living adjustment and performance-based salary increases to be included in the budget, and approve the FY26 RTC final budget. This is a public hearing, so I will open that up as well, and we'll start with a staff presentation.
Thank you, Chair Hill. Christian Schoenlaw for the record, Director of Finance and CFO for RTC. I'll make this rather brief as there were no comments from the last budget hearing. There really have not been any adjustments substantively to the tentative budget that was submitted and accepted by Department of Taxation last month. So we'll just quickly go over a little overview. I will just point out that we had revenue projections finalized from Department of Taxation related to sales tax, which show a continued decline, and we've adjusted those revenue figures in our final budget figures for this year as well as into the next coming year. So we show a 4% decrease this year and then an additional 2% decrease in the following year. So as a reminder, this is kind of the last step in all your decision making that's been going on from our 20-year look, the RTP development, which we just went through last year, our RTIP, which is our 5-year planning document, which we frequently update and brought to you last board meeting for a final adjustment. Every 2 years, we bring around the street and highway ICAs that allow us to construct in the local jurisdictions, Reno, Sparks, Washoe County. And then all of those things roll up into our annual capital and operating budget, which is what I'm presenting today. Quick reminder, the majority of our expenditures in this budget are capital related, with less than 10% of our costs coming from staff and operations. So the budget process, we notate starts in March with the board retreat, but we do start working on this back in January, sometimes December. We take the input from the board of that retreat process in conjunction with our director's retreat the week following, and then compile that in the Department Taxation tentative budget, which we submitted back in April. We present that budget to you kind of after the fact, just due to the timing and statutory requirements of that presentation. I come to you today with the final budget for approval, which is the public hearing we're in. And then hopefully once approved, I can submit this down to the Department of Taxation a couple days early, and it is due by May 31st. Recap here, just the majority of our revenue comes from fuel tax, sales tax, and federal funding. Fuel tax making up about 40%, federal funding is about 35%, and sales tax at 15%. Some of our other smaller revenue sources include regional road impact fees, passenger fares, transfers from NDOT, investment income on our fund balance, and then other miscellaneous reimbursements from projects and other sources. Most of our expenses, as mentioned, go towards capital, and that's both on the street and highway and public transit side. This year we have a rather capital-intensive project listing for both. We are replacing several vehicles on the paratransit operations, Several bus purchases, including our new hydrogen buses, are coming in the next fiscal year. And then around $200 million in street and highway expenditures as well. So we accumulate revenue to make sure that we can deliver large projects like we have this year. And I'll go ahead and highlight some of those as well. We are currently ongoing construction in the Arlington Avenue bridges. We plan to demolish that bridge starting in the middle of next month. One construction year to complete that. A lot of federal funding involved in that through congressionally designated spending, RAISE grant, some COVID funding, and then of course our local RTC fuel tax match and some surface transportation block grant funds as well. So a large mix of federal and local resources to deliver that project to the tune of around $35 million. Mill Street's also ongoing right outside of our office here. Another approximately $30 million project. It's funded completely with local fuel tax funds. Sparks Boulevard construction will be starting next fiscal year. That project is mostly funded through federal sources of formula funds through the Surface Transportation Block Grant. That's a $60 million project. We are starting construction and completing various stages of the hydrogen fueling infrastructure at our Sutro facility to run those new hydrogen buses. We have 2 in service now with 6 more to come in the next 6 months. All 8 of those will be in service within the next fiscal year. We're finalizing our design on the Virginia Street BRT project. We'll be making various adjustments to onboarding platforms and bus striping and some roadway improvements in that project as well. That's about $17 million project. We are undergoing and will complete the Trick Rail study, which looks at feasibility of different commuter options out to the Tahoe Regional Industrial Center from the Reno Sparks area as alternates to using the I-80 corridor. We were awarded recently a Safe Streets for All planning study grant. That's $1.5 million. That'll complete some of our roadway safety studies. And then our neighborhood plans, which all the local jurisdictions should be familiar with now, looking at different pedestrian and multimodal improvements within the neighborhoods. And those are ongoing 2 plans per year. So with that, I'm not bringing anything new to you, so I didn't load up a huge slide deck, but I will take any questions that you have. I just wanted to point out the revenue is the main issue or difference that we have from the prior version.
Thank you very much. Before we get into board comments, Madam Clerk, is there any public comment on this public hearing?
No, there is not.
Okay, I'm looking to the board to see if anyone has comments. It seems like Commissioner Garcia, are you unmuted? Yes, okay.
I don't have any comments.
Okay, and then Mayor Lawson.
Raising my hand.
Yes, sir.
I'm asking Bill mainly, do we see any of these federal funds getting clawed back on us? So say we start Sparks Boulevard and get halfway through and they pull the funding. Is that a possibility or not?
I'll actually let Christian address that.
Yes, so thank you for that question. Sparks Boulevard is formula funding, and it's from the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, which isn't a competitive or discretionary award. I'm not terribly concerned about that. We might see some changes to funding levels, but we are accumulating those revenues over several years. If something like that does happen, there's a trade-off to another project down the road. We'll be able to continue those projects kind of once you start them. It's not something we're going to stop. We just have to look down further into our RTP projects to possibly delay or look for other funding sources. We have very few discretionary grants that have not been obligated at this point. Lemon Valley improvements is one of them. There's no indication of any of them being at risk at the moment, though.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other board comments? Yes, Commissioner Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to ask very specifically about something that I had hoped to see in the budget, and it could be that it's too late at this point in time, but there have been some, I don't know what we'll call it, there's sort of one-offs that occur over the course of the year. And I'm thinking specifically about the project that Mayor Sheevy and I use our contingency funds to do over on 7th Street. Madam Mayor and I have consistently argued that there needs to be some pool of money available for those things. It's sort of, I don't know if it's like a discretionary fund of the executive director or just somehow that it shouldn't come out of those funds. Where do we land with that? It's like emergencies happen, and where is the set aside or the pot of money for that?
Mr. Thomas.
So the only emergency, I guess, if you will, fund or the small pool of funds that each board member has as their discretionary funds. Fairly flexible in how we apply those. I would say though that, and Dale can talk about it, we do have what we call our TE spot or our traffic improvement spots, but those are typically vetted. So, you know, to the extent there's some crisis, that would be vetted through the professional staff to see if in fact, you know, whatever the emerging issue is more important, I guess, or more critical than what may already be in the queue. So we don't have a larger than last year budget for those unique kind of board-driven projects.
Well, and the concern I have is that the board directed funds, or we'll call it board discretionary funds, are very small. And so I think in that case, on the last two times that we've had to use those, I think it exhausted both mine and Mayor Sheevy's dollars in one fell swoop, which meant that then when someone came and had a request for bus passes or a program for elementary school students, we didn't have the resources to do it. So I suppose what I'm suggesting, Mr. Thomas and Madam Chair, is simply there has to be another avenue for those things that arise that are sort of emergency and constituent related, right? The issue on 7th Street is a rather unique one because we had, a person die there. And so, and then we've had ones also. 7th Street is very tricky. It's an area in my particular ward that has some issues. So I guess I would say, and Madam Mayor is here with us too. She may have a different perspective than me, but I would like to see going forward, if not in this budget cycle, for those issues to be addressed over time or when that need arises.
So if I may, Commissioner Reese, that although we're not specifically budgeted to do those kind of things, we budget optimistically on project delivery, right? So if there's a need to pivot, there's just simply a trade-off in another project timing to be able to accommodate some of those things. So without adding a specific line item or dollar amount to those types of requests, with the board's decision-making, I'm sure we can address them as they come up. There's also, if you were to refer back to the line item budget presented in both the executive director and in the engineering budget, there's room for board directed actions. They're not delivery of projects, but often we start with scoping, feasibility, or kind of planning efforts on those projects, or even preliminary design. So there is room for those, but those actual construction projects that require further discussion and some trade-off in the existing capital budget as written today. Now, we can certainly change that going forward. I do think it's a little late to do that in the current version, but for discussion.
But if they're vetted traffic safety projects that are on regional roads, that's certainly something that can run through engineering in the future, correct?
I think the best way, and both Dale and Christian can pipe in, I think, we have a fairly complex decision-making process. It doesn't mean that it's etched in stone. It just is, that's the way we make decisions. So if some unique thing happened and the board felt the sentiment that we needed to pivot and use the money differently, we can do that. We just don't have a very large bucket of money with nothing designated for it. So I think that's the point Christian's making. If the board felt like something needed to be done urgently, there's a way to do it. It would just come at the cost of moving something else back or changing some other project.
Well, and to be clear, Mr. Thomas, I'm not or Madam Chair, maybe, I'm not suggesting that we would pivot and say, spend $10 million just because
Right.
I do it. I'm talking about very small, discrete things that occur over the course of a year when an occurrence happens that requires our attention on it. And I'm not suggesting we have to come back to the board and ask for a vote. I have to imagine that all of us have had occasions where this arises and we would support each other in that action. I'm saying there should just be some small area of unallocated funds, I suppose, that help us to do those things. But maybe I'm off base.
No, I hear what you're saying. We did the same thing, that we had complaints about Midtown, and I used discretionary funds for the speed signs that you see at the roundabout because we had safety issues there. So I know that there's, that's certainly a discussion.
I will bring something back for the board
Yeah,
this year so we can talk it through to see what are the boundaries, what are the limitations
Mhm.
we actually do in this process.
yeah. Thank you so much, Councilman Reese, for bringing this up. I guess, like, Bill, I would say maybe some sort of like emergency contingency fund, because what happens is you could have, we've had 2 or 3 in a year, right? And you use all your contingency, but it would even exceed that sometimes. And these are, not the current projects that we have, or like Devin's saying, these large amounts. They're typically smaller to do mitigation of, enhancement of like a, Vision Zero type of arm of something, whenever it just sort of, where you want to put in some mitigation efforts, whether it's flashers or, barriers or just certain things that, you just didn't see. And then what happens is sometimes that contingency funding is not enough, just because it is small. So I just think that there should be a way that it doesn't, I guess, uproot the budget in any capacity. We sort of have, just this set aside that whenever things happen that they're just hard to predict, I guess.
So I just want to ensure that everyone understands. So I budget optimistically on capital expenditures, so highest possible level, and then lowest possible level on revenues. So by design, there's room for these types of items in the budget. So even though not specifically lined out, working with engineering and planning, we certainly pivot from project to project. Sometimes there's acquisition and right-of-way issues that don't let us deliver a project within the current fiscal year, and then we're allowed to move within that same categorical expense towards something else. So there's room, as I see it now, to accommodate these kind of one-off things, in addition to just having a specific line for them.
Okay. Well, that's great. I really appreciate it. They're not big, but they do sometimes arise, whether, they just happen. You just,
Yeah.
but they are. So,
And the worst case scenario, we can always augment the budget if it is something significant. We haven't had to do that. We did that with the MPO budget recently with some new grant funding sources and reimbursements to complete the trick study. So, if something does come up, this isn't the last bite at the apple. If we need to address something, there's ways to do that.
okay, great. Thank you. I really appreciate the clarification and the flexibility there. Like I said, sometimes, one contingency doesn't fill it. That's why, I go to Devin. Can I have some of your money to help, right? And I don't want to end up in a place where, we can't fulfill sort of constituent needs if we're like cut and dry, right? So it's just hard to predict. And hopefully we don't get a lot, but sometimes, it happens. So thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, any other board discussion? All right, well, now we've taken our public comment, had our board discussion, so I am looking for an approval. Do you have a motion on the screen, or can we just say as outlined?
I don't have a motion on the screen. The
That's okay.
recommended action, and Adam, help me if I'm wrong here, is to approve the final budget as presented.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion from the board.
That would be my motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Reese, and looking for a second.
Happy to second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'm sure staff have heard your comments loud and clear, so we'll see what the next steps are on that on a future meeting, and I'll track that for everyone. Any other comments from the board before we take a motion? I'm not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We'll now move into commissioner announcements and updates. Do commissioners have any announcements or updates? I have a quick one. We went to the school board meeting, Bill and Jim and I, to support our pilot project agreement. The school board unanimously approved that on consent, and we will be having a media event on Kids Ride Free on June 3rd at 1 o'clock. And if you don't have those details, let me know or someone else know, and we want to make sure you get there because it's going to be a great celebration. And Bill is even looking into opportunities to wrap a bus so we can really promote it and let people know that this is a great option for kids to get to school, get to food, have fun, etc. Okay. Anything else? Yes, Mr. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have it on my calendars at Desert Skies Middle School, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And I thank you for your leadership and Mr. Thomas's. I do think this is such an incredible program, and once people are aware of it fully, they'll be able to take advantage of it. And so it just may be a communication, a rollout, all the things, but there is really giving access to our students to access the bus for a variety of reasons, some of which are for fun, some of which are educational, some is to get food. It can be whatever the need is, I think is a very critically important thing. And so I'll be watching as it rolls out and interested to see how it goes in its in enrollment.
Yes, I agree. I'm really excited. Thank you all. I think it's great to see how we can partner with all of the different agencies in town and also support our kids. So that's great. It's a win-win.
Let me also say that last week, Commissioner Garcia and I were in Washington, D.C. with the team.
Yes.
Very productive week, I thought. There's a lot of unknowns in the transportation world as there are in the larger world in Washington, D.C. But I will say that transportation has the ability to cut through sort of partisanship in a way that I think other issues might not. And so I am hopeful that the work that we did there will be fruitful. I think I'm especially encouraged by the advocacy displayed by my colleague on this board, Ms. Garcia, and by our team around the Sun Valley Roadway Improvements Project, which is really sort of a primary goal of this body. But I was really, sort of excited to lean into that. And so really thank you all for supporting our effort to be there in DC. I think I might have been taking your place, Ms. Hill, because you had budget meetings to conduct and whatnot. But it was a good and productive time, and I really appreciated learning more about APTA and the organization and its goals as well.
Thank you both for going. It's such a great conference. So that's awesome that you advocate for us. And Commissioner Garcia.
And because I haven't publicly thanked my fellow board members, thank you for lending your support to Sun Valley. It's a much deserved community, and this infrastructure project would be a game changer for the community. So thank you for going all in on it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's exciting. Okay. Any other announcements? Not seeing any. We'll now move into our final public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for a great meeting. It is 2:25 and we are adjourned. Have a
Thank you,
great one.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.